At the time of this recording, Ant-Man and the Wasp is rocking a 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means it's a rotten movie. But that doesn't mean people don't like it. Today I'm giving you 5 movies on Rotten Tomatoes that are rotten, but I still enjoy. Let's do it. What's up, flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Rotten Tomatoes, it's not without its controversy, although some people look at that score not knowing that it's a review conglomerate, that 48% for Quantumania means 48% of critics gave it a 6 or higher, and the actual average score is a 5.7, so right around that 6 mark, right around that fresh mark. And a lot of movies have a fairly different average score than what that actual score is, and if you don't go in and do a little bit of research when you're looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score of a movie, well, then you may just misjudge how that movie is actually being talked about by critics. And then you have the audience score, which, as we can see for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, is a lot higher. We have over 1,000 verified ratings. That number is going to change, though, because there are a lot more people that haven't seen that movie just yet. And I do enjoy looking at audience scores every now and then, although with the recent review bombing one way or the other, 1 star, 10 star on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is always one where you have to kind of read between the lines and try to get a good idea, because there are a lot of honest people actually on the internet. I know, it's hard to believe. I'm a part of Rotten Tomatoes. I'm a part of that critic score, but today I'm going against the grain. I'm going to give you guys 5 movies that I feel deserve a better score than what they actually have. Deserve more than a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, which again means 60% of critics gave it a 6 or higher. Say it with me, everyone. Review conglomerate. That's what it is. And let's start with the most recent MCU movie, a movie that I was more positive than negative on. Again, I don't think the movie is anything more than, well, yeah, it was okay, right? It wasn't what we expected. It is not the spectacle that I had hoped for from that first trailer, but it's also not that very simplistic, small-scale tale that we got in the first Ant-Man, which is really what I've enjoyed the most about this franchise. I thought it was beautifully balanced in the first movie. It took a huge step down in the second movie. Quantumania, while I feel, and look, you see that critic score for Ant-Man and the Wasp, and we'll do a video like that later, fresh movies that I don't feel deserve that fresh rating, but that one was loved, yet I feel like Quantumania was a bit of a step up, but it took it to just such a bigger scale. But there was enough in Quantumania for me to be just slightly more positive than negative at the end of the day. It got a lot wrong. I think the visual effects were pretty bad, especially for 2023, but Kang carries. Jonathan Majors as Kang was absolutely excellent in this movie. He was good enough to allow me to get kind of sucked into that story going into that third act. And then the battle that we get, some fun moments with Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. It gets a lot right, but unfortunately, not enough right for me to be raving about. And honestly, I look at that 48% score, and I kind of understand. I could see how it's about 50-50 with critics, but again, looking at the average rating, it's a 5.7. That's pretty close to the score that I gave it, so I can't be too mad at it, but if you're looking at where I fall, I would fall fresh on the film. Next up is yet another film that I was disappointed with. I did expect more from, but after watching the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, I did kind of appreciate it more, and that's kind of my caveat here, right? This Rotten Tomatoes score is not taking into account that extra 45 minutes with this film, but I still have to look at it as a movie that was pretty much, I don't want to say hated. Oh, yeah, I guess it was kind of hated by critics, because 29%, only 29% gave it a 6 or higher. Yet you look at that average rating being a 5 out of 10, this wasn't a movie that was completely hammered by critics. I think that 29% score is just a bit deceiving, because the average is a 5 out of 10, and that's really right down the middle. And I was, again, a bit more positive than negative around that 6 mark with the original version, but I watched the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, and I just got more than I did from the original cut. You get more of Clark Kent's story. You get more of what made us kind of really enjoy that portrayal from Ben Affleck, because we actually understand more of the dispute between the two, and then when we get that final battle at the end, the stakes are higher because you understand that. So I think the extra 45 minutes in the Ultimate Cut gave us a reason to care a lot more. Now, does it fix the mistakes that I have with Batman v Superman? No, it doesn't, right? I still don't like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I still don't like certain moments and certain lines of dialogue, but I do think it enhances that story. Again, It's kind of a cheat here because that 29% is for the original version, but even the original version, I think I had more fun with that than a lot of people. That 63% audience rating, that 3.5 out of 5, makes a little bit more sense for me, but I think we can all agree Batman v Superman is a movie that should have been better than it was. Here's one that I think more people are going to disagree with. Hancock. It has a 41% score on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, a 59 audience score, which means audiences are rotten on this movie as well, and a 5.4 out of 10 average. Yet again, we see an average score that is significantly higher than the actual tomato meter score, but I feel like I'm higher on this movie than any of those scores. I look at that 3.5 out of 5 average rating, and I wouldn't quite take it there, but I do think Hancock is fun. Looking back on it, it's much more of a grounded approach to superhero films. And we've seen a few movies like that in the DC and in the Marvel universe since Hancock, but Hancock was one of the first ones that took that darker and grittier approach. And you have Will Smith's character that just doesn't really care about the fact that he's a superhero, and he meets Jason Bateman's character, and everything that happens in that third act and the lore that they try to hit on there and some of the things that happen, they are a bit more on the ridiculous side. But those first two acts, that build up of turning Hancock into that superhero and making it a great PR move and everything that Bateman's character kind of does to Hancock in this movie, I actually found that to be really interesting. And I feel as if this is a movie we can go back and look at in a bit of a different light since we've had so many other less grounded superhero movies, and Hancock was kind of a breath of fresh air. Again, not in love with this film, but I actually would go positive on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, hindsight's 2020, right? The movie comes out in 2005, and Constantine takes such a darker and really different from what we were getting in the early 2000s approach to a superhero concept. Didn't necessarily treat it like a superhero movie, but Constantine being firmly in the DC universe, a character that is just fascinating. I feel as if this movie is one you can watch today, and it just works on a vastly different level than what it worked on in 2005. And again, I was very young at that point. I watched this movie, as a kid. It's dark, it's different, but I kind of felt that way about Batman Begins. But you go back and you have this gritty world that they set up, and Keanu Reeves, his take on this character is really well done. Again, he's not an actor that shows a ton of range, but for someone like this, that works. And even the supporting cast, Rachel Weisz and Jaimon Hansu, I thought Shia LaBeouf was, a little kooky in this movie, but I actually enjoyed his presence. And it goes to a place in the third act that is just super entertaining. And Constantine has, and I was never really super negative on it, right? But it's gotten so much better over the years because you can look back on it and appreciate it much more so. And so I look at these two scores, I see that 46% on the tomato meter, a 5.5 out of 10, which is actually approaching a positive average score. But I see that audience score at the 72 mark, and I'm like, yeah, I actually agree with that. I think it's a movie that should be taken more seriously, and I think it is being taken more seriously because they are talking about a sequel, and I would be very open to that. It's a movie that people have seen, I've been watching for the last 20 almost years, and there's a fan base for it that I believe would show out for this movie. So I'm excited to see Keanu Reeves back if they do go in that direction. And I don't even think Constantine is an okay DC movie. I think this is a good DC movie, and it's one that I enjoyed revisiting. Again, sometimes audience scores piss me off. I look at a movie like Uncut Gems. I look at some of the independent movies over the years, and I see just such a low audience score, and I'm sitting here like, what are you doing? Just stay away. I think this one nails it. 75% of audiences like this movie, a 3.9 out of 5 average rating. That is right where it deserves to be, in my opinion. I feel like Man of Steel is one of the more underappreciated blockbusters of the last several years. It's a movie that does age, for me, better and better every time I go back and watch it. Are there some flaws in there? Absolutely. But we're seeing, and they're portraying a darker Superman, someone that we weren't used to. We were used to Christopher Reeve, and then we get Henry Cavill, who nails the role. I thought he was perfect for it. And again, I understand they have recast, and I've accepted that at this point. I am ready to see what they have for us down the road, but that doesn't mean we can't look back and appreciate what he did at this character. And I don't think a 56 critic rating is devastating, and honestly, look at that average rating. That's a 6.2. that's a positive average rating. Slightly positive, but positive nonetheless. So this is not an atrocious Rotten Tomatoes score, but it is rotten, and I believe it deserves to be in this video. It deserves to be talked about because I just think critics should have taken Man of Steel more seriously. If this movie came out in 2023, I feel as if it would have felt so refreshing compared to some of the other big superhero blockbusters we've gotten as of late, and it would have performed better. I just feel as if this is a movie that has gotten better over the last 10 years. We've had 10 years since the release of Man of Steel, and again, not a devastating Rotten Tomatoes score, but I think the quality is much higher than that. But those aren't the only movies, right? There are more movies that I could talk about. I just wanted to make this a list of 5. What movies do you believe deserves to be on this list? Movies that got a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, but should have been higher, should have been in that positive range. Or you could even talk about the average score if you want to do that much research and get that detailed. Should I make a video talking about the opposite? Superhero movies that got great scores on Rotten Tomatoes, but I feel maybe they did not deserve that type of praise. If you guys want to see that, be sure to like this video, be sure to comment your thoughts, and if you want to subscribe to this channel, that would be awesome. Thanks so much for watching. This was different, so if you guys support it, we could do more things like it. Otherwise, I'll see you soon.